Right now.
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 Because it's time to right now.
Right now.
Right.
Right now.
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 Because it's time to right now.
Right now.
Right.
Welcome, my friend, to another daily writing motivation stream. Today, as in all days, we're going to get some work done on our storytelling. Whether you're working on a book, a script, a novella, a short story, or something else altogether, let's get some writing in. We're going to be doing a single 40-minute writing sprint, and we're going to try to be consistent. We're going to see if we can push and try to get some work in. Whether you're early on or whether you're really heavy into edits and revisions, let's try. And if you just want to talk and you want to hang out, feel free to chat along. We'll talk in the chat and we'll see what's up. By the way, welcome to the community. I'm Kaufman, daily writing streamer, almost 600 consecutive writing streams and counting. I'm on a mission to help you with finishing your book. So let's get into it. As you can see, I have my software all set up and I'm excited to start writing. I am getting closer. I think I'm about, I want to say I'm about 60 to 70% of the way through this chapter. Yeah, maybe like 60, 70. This chapter isn't crazy long, but it switches between a couple of POVs and, plotting and POV swaps as I'm almost at the midpoint. So I'm going to see what I can get into. Feel free to come along and join, and let's hop right into it. Whether you are brainstorming, writing, editing, revising, or doing something else altogether, come join us because it's time to write now. All right, my friends. I hope that we were able to get a little bit of writing in that sprint. Were you able to get any words, any ideas, any inspiration, or anything in between? I would love to hear. Drop a comment. Hopefully, we were able to make a little progress. I'm at a good. The scene's actually really interesting. I've and it, yeah. Well, it's just an interesting scene. I'm about one chapter before the midpoint of my book, and the midpoint is super crazy, by the way. And I'm trying to balance the right build up where the hero is trying to say something like inspiring, and it's not going to work out at all. It's going to backfire. And I think it'll create kind of a comedic moment, but I'm asking myself if I have a comedic moment, if tonally, if that's the right point to have it. So I'm kind of writing it out a little bit because we're about to swap up POVs again. So it's cool. The chapter's crazy though. Like, man, what a crazy part of the book. So who doesn't want to write or read a part of the story where there's like over 100 animals captured and they've all been forced to fight to the death? So fun part of fun. This is a fun story arc. Nice, Blood. You're like, I finished one chapter and moved on to the next. Bazinga. Nice. Takipa, you're like, is your novel going to be a hit? You know, that's a really great question. I am doing my absolute best to create one of the best, most engaging, awesome action adventure stories of this time. I feel it's going to be an incredible story. There's so many things, from character development, crazy magic systems, this whole action adventure with Scarecrow, the Pebble, Gore. There's so much. And I have some new people in the chat. I'll read the blurb real fast, and you guys can tell me if you think it's interesting. 1 second. Yeah, I got about 5 more minutes. Let me I'll pull up the blurb. So I'll pull up the blurb really fast, and you guys can tell me if you think it sounds interesting. I feel like it'll be great, but ultimately it's the readers who get to decide, right? We can think our books are incredible, but at the end of the day, the readers are the ones who decide the value, right? Because readers are the ones who decide, A, am I going to purchase the book? And then B, how do I feel about the book? Either you love it, you hate it, you're neutral, or somewhere in between. But I always love getting feedback. I've revised this blurb a couple times, but this is the blurb for The Last Scarecrow. The Last Scarecrow, a Dawn of Magic series, part 1. What happens when you forget that you're the last of your kind? Scarecrow, with fleeting memories of his creators, awakens to a world withering under the nothingness. Nature's elemental magics rage unchecked, animals lose their minds, and even the strongest creatures fade from the threat of the first demon. Haunted by loss but driven by hope, Scarecrow sets out to find the truth. Joined by unlikely allies, an eccentric, sharp-tongued crow lost without his younglings, a flightless trickster of a pixie lost without her kind, and a lovelorn grizzly bear lost without his soulmate. Together they traverse the lands of the last, where each shadow hides a predator, every sunrise beckons the moon, and hope lies like an unnerving melody of entrapment. Can Scarecrow and his wayward companions overcome the challenges of a crumbling world and unravel their truths before they succumb to nothingness? Or will their shadow nemesis plunge them into eternal suffering, force them to forget who they are and why they began their journeys in the first place? A Dawn of Magic series is a dark fantasy action adventure story that explores freedom, loss, and the consequences of magic being unleashed into the universe. Step into a spellbinding tale of mystery, magic, melody, memory, and mayhem. Whew. Man, I still love the blurb. Every single time I read it, I'm like so happy how it turned out. I think that was my 6th iteration of it. So I definitely took it through a number of edits and revisions last year. Because as we all know as writers, right? If we don't have a good cover design and if we don't have a good blurb, then nobody picks up the book, right? So we got to at least make sure those two things are dialed in as much as possible outside of the whole marketing of the book. So we'll see. It's my hope that people will like it. I feel this story is going to be incredible, but I'm subjective since I'm writing the story. All of us authors are a little biased, right? Blood Rose, I'd read it. Oh, that's so sweet. Woo! All right. I feel like that's winner, chicken dinner. I appreciate you, my friends. I will I've been working on Scarecrow every day over the course of all these streams. I started working on it on day one of these writing sprint streams last year, and now I'm almost at 600 consecutive streams, and it's just become part of this journey of just writing. And I will probably announce more details on what the release is going to actually look like once I'm a little further in this draft. Yeah. I will be launching probably the website for it and the book cover reveal soon. I'm just trying to make sure I'm far enough in this draft. I keep thinking I'm going to be done with it sooner, but then I keep not having enough time to write. So it is what it is. I am simply enjoying the journey for what it is because I'm having so much fun. I'm a weirdo and I love every part of the writing process, from brainstorm, writing, revising, editing, even the marketing I'm getting into. I just love the whole process. And it's super cool. You're like, oh, is it a molding fantasy world? Love that kind of storytelling. Yeah, it is. It's like a crazy fantasy world. It's a crazy, like, post-apocalyptic fantasy world with crazy animals, crazy magic. It's not a fun world. It's not a fun world to live in, though. That's for sure. I feel bad for my creatures. But on that note, I have to wrap up the stream. For those of you who want like daily writing inspiration, definitely make sure hit that subscribe or that follow button. I stream every day, and this is a great right now is a great community if you're just needing writing motivation. We do writing sprint streams, we do critique streams, we do author interviews, we do fiction contests. We just had a huge fiction contest. We do writing conferences, and all of it is designed to help give you the inspiration to finish your book. So during the week, we tend to do more writing sprints, and then weekends we do specialty stuff. This Saturday, day after tomorrow, we're doing something on book covers. So are you going to self-publish, or are you going to try and pitch it to an agent? I'm going to self-publish for book one, and we'll see how it turns out. And then later on down the line, I might look into querying and what that looks like. But I have to get going. So thank you all so much for joining me. I'll be back tomorrow for another daily writing sprint stream, 3 Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. I know people are telling me that it feels like a dark cross between the Last Scarecrow and what was that? The Never Ending Story. So it feels like a much darker version, which is I'm being very intentional with that. So I love it. But thank you all so much for joining me. And unfortunately, that brings us to the end of the stream. Don't forget, words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kaufman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, writers. Words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kaufman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, writers. It's time to write
Right now.
Sorry.
Right now, not right now, but right now. Read now, right now.